This is Asia Now.
It's 9 a.m. here in Singapore and in Hong Kong. I'm Christine Chan. Well, this hour in the United States, where it's just past 8 in the evening Eastern Standard Time, there are many across the nation welcoming the dawn of a new political era. Joe Biden has been declared by the American press as the next president, and Kamala Harris is expected to become the first woman of color and indeed the first person of Asian descent to be elected their vice president.
We did it, Joe. You're going to be the next president of the United States.
Well, as that news was filtering through the United States, the President Donald Trump was on the golf course. He's since returned to the White House, where he has refused to make any concession. He's been tweeting that he won the election by a lot. He is expected to become the third elected president since World War II to have served a single term. And today, people in Myanmar are not expecting any sweeping change after they cast their ballots in a general election. Aung San Suu Kyi and her National League for Democracy are expected to hold on to power despite falling short on their economic promises. Leaders here in Asia and certainly around the world have been congratulating Joe Biden in the last few hours on becoming the projected winner of the U.S. presidential election. The former vice president will become the 46th president of the United States after beating Donald Trump in an unprecedented and contentious vote. Donald Trump so far has refused to concede defeat. He's promised and said legal challenges. He is the first president to have lost re-election since George H.W. Bush in 1992. Well, after the last 4 days of nail-biting suspense, the Associated Press and various other media outlets say that Joe Biden won the state of Pennsylvania, where he was born. That gives him a crucial 20 electoral college votes, returning this battleground state to Democratic control. Joe Biden has also become the projected winner of the state of Nevada with its 6 electoral college votes. Both those states have given Mr. Biden the 290 electoral college votes, well more than the 270 he needed to win this presidential vote. Now, Joe Biden currently has more than 50% of the popular vote as well nationally. He won some 4.3 million more votes than Donald Trump. The former U.S. President Barack Obama congratulated his former second-in-command, saying that a record number of American voters backed the Biden-Harris ticket.
We did it. We did it, Joe. You're going to be the next president of the United States.
Joyful words from Kamala Harris, who becomes the first woman of color, and indeed the first American of Asian descent to serve as the American vice president. Now, cheers and applause were breaking out through neighborhoods in and around the United States. People emerged on their balconies, yelling, honking their car horns, and banging on pots. That wave of noise built up as many more people learned of the good news for them. In a stark reminder, though, of how divided America is today, these are angry pro-Trump demonstrators gathering at state capitol buildings in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and in Arizona. They're calling for the count to be contested in all their courts. Our U.S. Bureau Chief Simon Marks has been stationed in Washington, D.C., keeping watch on all these developments. Simon, Joe Biden's first national address as a president-elect is just moments away. Is that message tonight, though, likely to filter through to all Americans? Joe Biden has promised to serve as president.
Well, it's certainly going to reach all Americans because the broadcast networks here, many of which were, until a few moments ago, carrying football games that, of course, are wildly popular here in the United States, have all preempted their broadcasts of those games. And we're watching these scenes of jubilation in the car park at the Chase Center in Wilmington, Delaware. We believe Joe Biden is running about 5 minutes late, but his motorcade left his home about 10 minutes ago. So It's only a 15-minute drive to the Chase Center from his home, so I think he'll be there fairly soon. This is going to be a very widely watched broadcast, and not just by the people that you can see there celebrating Joe Biden's the result that made Joe Biden earlier today the country's president-elect. But I think this will also be very closely watched by many of the 71 million Americans that voted for Donald Trump, who still has not conceded that he has lost this race for the White House. Indeed, on Twitter, within the last couple of hours, has again maintained that he won the election, that he won what he describes as 71 million legal votes, again inferring that Joe Biden has stolen this election without, for now a fifth day, providing any concrete evidence to substantiate that claim. Joe Biden, I think, in this speech is going to strike a conciliatory tone, as he did last night. He's going to accept victory. He's going to accept the mandate that Americans have given him, and he's going to call for the country to come together and unite and put to an end 4 years in which he will argue and Democrats would claim the country has been governed in a frenzied manner by President Donald Trump that has left people absolutely on edge and uncertain of what is going to come next. And that's one of the reasons why in Democrat strongholds like Wilmington, Delaware, like Washington, D.C., like New York, San Francisco, Chicago, there have been non-stop celebrations on the streets today. It is as though for Democrats and supporters of Joe Biden, a pressure valve was suddenly released. Everybody felt that it was absolutely apposite to get on the streets and engage in a non-stop celebration. I can tell you up in my neck of the woods here in Washington, D.C., people have been on the streets offering strangers glasses of champagne. I mean, there really has been a party atmosphere here tonight, with fireworks being let off and cars sounding their horns as they drive up and down the roadways here, as we've seen in other cities across the country. But Joe Biden needs to find the words tonight to try and convey the message that he's ready to unite the country. And then he's got to hope that at some point soon, Donald Trump may prove to be a willing partner in that endeavor.
Simon, you have been a committed student of the Trump playbook for many years now. What would you say his game plan is, in contrast to all that celebration around you in the White House, in the West Wing? We're told it is very quiet.
It must be an extraordinary mood in the White House tonight, because there is no possible way that Donald Trump and his family inside the building will not be aware of the fact that there are massive protests and noisy celebrations, protests of celebration taking place outside the building. I see Joe Biden's motorcade is now beginning to arrive at the Chase Center, so we can't be that far away from this all-important first address to the nation that he will be making as a president-elect. You know, it is so hard to understand what Donald Trump's strategy is at the moment. He learnt the news that Joe Biden had become America's next president while he was on the golf course. Before arriving at the golf course, he had insisted that he had won the election and won it big, even though it's apparent that he lost it. He came back from the golf course and angrily made a series of false assertions on Twitter, all of them immediately flagged by the social media platform, suggesting that observers from his party were not allowed to witness counts in Pennsylvania. That is not true. Suggesting that he won the election. That is not true. And insisting that he's going to continue with legal action to try and seek some kind of redress. Well, the Trump campaign tonight launched its 10th attempt at a lawsuit in Arizona. It has lost 9 so far. But they're going to give it another go with lawsuit attempt number 10. But, you know, it's been 5 days and there's been no evidence provided at all. Not a shred of evidence provided to support the contention that this election was fraudulently stolen from Donald Trump and from the American people by some kind of organized ballot fraud. I think there is intense pressure building on Donald Trump to do what every past defeated presidential candidate in the modern era has done, and that is to make the graceful concession speech. And it will be interesting to see if Joe Biden tonight uses the same cadence that he used last night, where he talks about the Republicans and people who voted for Donald Trump not being his opponents, but not being his enemies, a phrase that was absolutely lifted from the concession speech that Bob Dole, Republican senator, made when he was defeated in the race for the presidency by Bill Clinton. He made a concession speech to very disappointed Republicans. When Bill Clinton's name was intoned at the time, they all started booing. And Bob Dole calmed them down and said, no, I've said throughout this campaign, he's my opponent, not my enemy. And I think we're going to hear similar phrases from President Trump, President-elect Biden tonight.
Simon, I also want to quickly ask you, even if President Donald Trump refuses to leave the White House, COVID has returned to the White House this week.
Yeah, in a very major way. We've learnt within the last hour that 128,000 new cases, another daily record, were recorded here yesterday. That's the third day in a row of record highs, and President-elect Biden has made it known over the last couple of hours that one of the first acts that his transition team will be taking is to form a coronavirus task force. And he has pledged throughout this campaign to put Anthony Fauci, the renowned public health analyst here in the United States, at the top of that COVID-19 task force. Donald Trump, of course, pledged that if he won the election, he was going to fire Dr. Fauci. And he still has the possibility to do that because, remember, we're into a 70-day interregnum now. Donald Trump will remain in the White House until high noon, January the 20th, 2021, at which point Joe Biden will be sworn in, and then he and the new First Lady Jill Biden will move into the White House. And, of course, Senator Kamala Harris will make history, becoming the first female vice president of the United States and the first woman of color to be a heartbeat away from the presidency. So by emphasizing that he's going to put COVID-19 right on the front burner for his transition team, Joe Biden is signaling to the country that the period in which there is no national strategy to fight this virus comes to an end as soon as his inaugural address is over and he's back in the White House to start work. What the precise nature of his planned policies are with regards to that national policy, I think is still very unclear, because Joe Biden has conceded that he doesn't know if he has a national mandate to issue a face mask order. Doesn't know if he's going to have the authority to do that. But he's absolutely indicating tonight that it is the top priority for the Biden-Harris administration that will soon be in power here.
Well, when we speak of what Joe Biden's administration might have in their agenda, it must be noted that by January the 5th, there will be two runoffs in the state of Georgia for the Senate vote. And that's going to happen before any inauguration on January the 20th. It will certainly determine the outcome of whether Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are able to carry forward their plans for their national agenda or not.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right to focus on that, Christine. Remember that this time last week, I'm just looking to see if there's been anything new from Donald Trump while we've been talking, but there hasn't been. This time last week, the Democrats thought they were on the brink of a landslide, and not just a landslide for the man that we are about to see, Joe Biden, as president of the United States. They thought they were in for a clean sweep. They thought they were absolutely going to take control of the United States Senate, reverse the Republican majority there, and that, together with the majority the Democrats enjoy in the House of Representatives, was going to give Joe Biden the occasion to implement all of the policies that he had promised voters that he would advance if he became president. But then, of course, they didn't win the landslide. They've spent 5 nail-biting days waiting even to see if what we're about to witness here tonight was going to happen. Joe Biden becoming president-elect, and now they have to wait until those 2 runoff elections for the Senate seats in Georgia take place in January. The best-case scenario for the Democrats at the moment is that they end up with a 50-50 tie with the Republicans in the Senate. That would then allow Senator Kamala Harris, in her role not just as vice president, but along with that as president of the Senate, to break the tie in order to get legislation passed and enacted. However, that still doesn't mean that Joe Biden can get everything done that he has promised to do, because there are 4 or 5 Democrat senators who come from what are known here as purple states. They're not quite blue and they're not quite red. They're pretty conservative constituents that have supported Democrats, but that those Democrats have to work with and respect. And so there will be vast areas of Joe Biden's policy proposals. Gun control, for example. His plans to clean up America's environmental record. In foreign policy terms, possibly his desire to try and revive the Iran nuclear deal. His plan to take America back into the World Health Organization. All of that is going to require support in the Senate that at the moment it's not entirely clear he is going to enjoy. And so while they're celebrating here tonight, Democrats, not just in Wilmington, Delaware, but all over the country, and truly joyful at the news that Joe Biden is the president-elect, the cold dawn of a new day is going to bring with it enormous difficulties for Joe Biden getting things done. He says, look, I've worked with Republicans all my life. I can reach out across the aisle in the way that we used to when Barack Obama and I were running things, and back in the early 2000s and back even in the 80s and 90s. It is not entirely clear that Washington still works that way.
No, indeed, Simon. And in truth, when Joe Biden was vice president for those 8 years of the Obama administration, he was not that successful in reaching across the aisle to his Republican counterparts in the Senate. There are concerns or observations today that Joe Biden administration is pretty much going to be an Obama third term. What do you see are the potential pitfalls with that kind of analysis?
Well, I think that Joe Biden is going to want very much to be seen as his own man. I think it matters deeply to him, and I think that may be one of the reasons why Barack Obama was held back in reserve until the final days of this election campaign. You know, there are Democrats who think that perhaps if Joe Biden had Barack Obama by his side earlier in this campaign, that might have made a bit of a difference and energized Democrats to a greater degree. So he's going to want to show that he's his own man. But you are absolutely right to observe, Christine, that bipartisanship was not a hallmark of the Obama era. He had, Barack Obama, dreadful relationships with Republicans on Capitol Hill and was often faulted for not even trying to reach out across the aisle, in the same way as Donald Trump hasn't spoken to Nancy Pelosi for months, literally hasn't spoken to her, the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Barack Obama would go weeks and weeks and weeks without picking up the phone and calling senior Republicans up on Capitol Hill. So the lack of bipartisanship, the polarization of politics in this city is almost baked into the deal and has been for many years. Joe Biden has argued his central proposition to Americans was that the Trump presidency is an aberration. It's going to be an asterisk in the history books. You know, it was 4 years when, for some curious reason, everything wasn't normal, but you're then going to be able to make everything normal with a Biden presidency and with Donald Trump out of the White House. There are problems with that analysis because, first of all, there is just no love lost between these two political parties at the moment. And secondly, because Donald Trump may be leaving the White House, but he's not going anywhere. He's still going to be tweeting. He's not going to observe the time-honored convention that there is only one American president at any time and that you always give your successor the opportunity to govern without comment and without interference. There's no prospect for Donald Trump to be doing that. And Donald Trump, as he's shown today, is absolutely emboldened, and to some extent rightly so, by the fact that he's won the support of 71 million Americans. And that gives him enormous power, and it gives him enormous ongoing relevance in the Republican Party, even after his final day in the Oval Office.
Simon, I'm glad you brought that up. I wanted to ask you, constitutionally, as far as history tells us, if that is relevant at this point, post-Trump, but what do the history and the procedural books tell us about the refusal of a president to peacefully engage in a transfer of power? What happens then? There are Republican voices and others that are now whispering about the possibility of a pardon for Donald Trump.
Look, there's no precedent for any of this. In the modern era, we've never had a president of the United States refuse to stipulate that if he lost the election, he would engage in the peaceful transfer of power, which, as you know, is the fundamental bedrock of the American Constitution. It is what the United States, for 240 years, has argued marks the United States out from other countries that don't engage in that democratic tradition. Now, the Biden campaign said yesterday, it's very simple. If after midday on January the 20th, 2021, Donald Trump is still in the White House, he will be treated as a trespasser and he will be ejected. As for the issue of a pardon, Donald Trump and his family know that the post-presidency has the potential to be deeply uncomfortable for them. Prosecutors in the Southern District of New York have been looking into the Trump organization, Donald Trump's business. They want, of course, all the president's financial records and his business's financial records that Donald Trump has gone to the mat trying to make sure they can't get their hands on. And Donald Trump has been aware that the precedent that the Department of Justice has followed is that you can't indict a sitting president. But that cloak that has protected him as president will not protect him in the post-presidency. I think it is highly unlikely that Joe Biden would do for Donald Trump what Gerald Ford did for Richard Nixon and pardon Richard Nixon and top aides with regards to what went on here in 1972 and 1973 during the Watergate scandal. And this is one of the reasons why I suspect Donald Trump will really want to remain relevant. He might try to run for the presidency again in 2024. He might promote the idea of Ivanka Trump running for the presidency in 2024. He has certainly, on numerous occasions, suggested that he thinks that she would be a highly qualified and capable first female president for the United States. And of course, one of the reasons why it would be beneficial to President Trump, either himself to try and secure another term in office or for Ivanka Trump to secure it, is because she as president would then have pardon powers. Now, this is all speculative because we don't know if a criminal case is going to be brought against Donald Trump or his sons or other members of the Trump organization. But we certainly know that the Southern District in New York has been relentlessly pursuing its inquiries. We've got a bit of color just to bring you from this event that we're about to witness in Wilmington, Delaware. Joe Biden has indeed arrived. The pool reporters traveling with him to the event from his home described the ride as bumpy but mostly uneventful. A very large crowd of supporters waved and cheered at one corner near the venue. More cheering crowds gathered as we got close to the entrance. It seems that there are about 360 cars that have been allowed to drive into this car park at the Chase Center. And as you can see, most of the people that drove in those cars have exited those cars. The majority of them appear to be wearing face masks. Unlike, I have to say, the crowds that descended on Washington, D.C. to celebrate Joe Biden's victory today, we saw yet more COVID unsafe behavior during some of those celebrations. But these people in their cars at what will presumably be the last drive-in event of Joe Biden's election campaign will absolutely be delighted to hear what the president-elect has to say to them, and also delighted, I think, to cheer him to the rafters and to send him on his way to the transition. Christine, just a word for the control room. I've lost your audio, so if you guys can call me back, we can re-establish that audio. But it's absolutely clear that this crowd is now waiting for Joe Biden to arrive, and he will be arriving very soon, and absolutely will be taking to that stage. And I think you're going to see this crowd erupt in cheers and the sound of their car horns tooting as Joe Biden, Jill Biden, and of course the Vice President-elect, Senator Kamala Harris, and her husband take to the stage for this event that is being seen on the country's 3 main television networks, and therefore by hundreds of millions of people here in the United States.
Indeed. Well, Simon, for the benefit of our viewers and listeners tuned in to CNA from around the world, we are live in Wilmington in Delaware, and this is at Chase Center, the campaign headquarters of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and we're waiting just moments away from the first national address by Joe Biden as the president-elect. Now, Simon, you were talking about the U.S. networks a little earlier. I can tell you that Fox News is certainly broadcasting with a focus on the live events at Wilmington as well. Now, if we can turn this back to the campaign so far of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, all that talk and focus has been on Joe Biden. But tell us about the significance of Kamala Harris by his side. There are concerns as well about Joe Biden's age. It was some more than 30 years ago when he first made his bid for the presidency. But he is today the oldest president-elect of the United States.
Yep, on January the 20th, 2021 at high noon, he will be 78 years old, and he will become the oldest man ever to begin a first term in the Oval Office. And he was very clear about his reasons for choosing Senator Kamala Harris, accepting that he understood that he was going to be the oldest person ever to occupy the White House, and aware that, as he put it at times on the campaign trail, anything could happen. And he wanted someone by his side whom he believed was absolutely battle-tested and sufficiently experienced. And now we can see Senator Harris, as we talk about her, come out onto the stage wearing that white pantsuit and waving at the crowd. The white pantsuit, in some ways, a tribute, I think, to Hillary Clinton, who made that very mode of dress her hallmark on the campaign trail back in 2016. So quite a decision there by Kamala Harris to wear those clothes. Definitely that is a tribute to Hillary Clinton that we're witnessing, who of course was unable to be in the situation in which Joe Biden finds himself tonight. So Kamala Harris preparing to introduce Joe Biden to this enormously excited crowd. Let's listen in and enjoy the atmosphere.
Good evening. Thank you. Thank you. Good evening. So, thank you. Good evening. So, Congressman John Lewis, before his passing, wrote, "Democracy is not a state, it is an act." And what he meant was that America's democracy is not guaranteed. It is only as strong as our willingness to fight for it. To guard it and never take it for granted. And protecting our democracy takes struggle, it takes sacrifice, but there is joy in it, and there is progress, because we, the people, have the power to build a better future. And when our very democracy was on the ballot in this election, with the very soul of America at stake, and the world watching, you ushered in a new day for America. To our campaign staff and volunteers, this extraordinary team, thank you for bringing more people than ever before into the democratic process. And for making this victory possible. To the poll workers and election officials across our country who have worked tirelessly to make sure every vote is counted, our nation owes you a debt of gratitude. You have protected the integrity of our democracy. And to the American people who make up our beautiful country, thank you for turning out in record numbers to make your voices heard. And I know times have been challenging, especially the last several months. The grief, sorrow, and pain, the worries and the struggles. But we have also witnessed your courage, your resilience, and the generosity of your spirit. For 4 years, you marched and organized for equality and justice, for our lives and for our planet. And then you voted. And you delivered a clear message. You chose hope and unity, decency, science, and yes, truth. You chose Joe Biden as the next president of the United States of America. And Joe is a healer, a uniter, a tested and steady hand, a person whose own experience of loss gives him a sense of purpose that will help us as a nation reclaim our own sense of purpose, and a man with a big heart who loves with abandon. It's his love for Jill, who will be an incredible First Lady. It's his love for Hunter and Ashley and his grandchildren and the entire Biden family. And while I first knew Joe as vice president, I really got to know him as the father who loved Beau, my dear friend who we remember here today. And to my husband, Doug, and our children, Cole and Ella, and my sister Maya, and our whole family, I love you all more than I can ever express. We are so grateful to Joe and Jill for welcoming our family into theirs on this incredible journey. And to the woman most responsible for my presence here today, my mother, Kamala Harris, who is always in our hearts. When she came here from India at the age of 19, she maybe didn't quite imagine this moment, but she believed so deeply in an America where a moment like this is possible. And so I am thinking about her and about the generations of women, Black women, Asian, white, Latina, Native American women, who throughout our nation's history have paved the way for this moment tonight. Women who fought and sacrificed so much for equality and liberty and justice for all, including the Black women who are too often overlooked, but so often prove they are the backbone of our democracy. All the women who have worked to secure and protect the right to vote for over a century, 100 years ago with the 19th Amendment, 55 years ago with the Voting Rights Act, and now in 2020 with a new generation of women in our country who cast their ballots and continued the fight for their fundamental right to vote and be heard. Tonight I reflect on their struggle, their determination, and the strength of their vision to see what can be unburdened by what has been. And I stand on their shoulders. And what a testament it is to Joe's character that he had the audacity to break one of the most substantial barriers that exists in our country and select a woman as his vice president. But while I may be the first woman in this office, I will not be the last. Because every little girl watching tonight sees that this is a country of possibilities. And to the children of our country, regardless of your gender, our country has sent you a clear message. Dream with ambition, lead with conviction, and see yourselves in a way that others may not, simply because they've never seen it before. But know that we will applaud you every step of the way. And to the American people, no matter who you voted for, I will strive to be a vice president like Joe was to President Obama, loyal, honest, and prepared, waking up every day thinking of you and your family. Because now is when the real work begins, the hard work, the necessary work, the good work, the essential work to save lives and beat this epidemic, to rebuild our economy so it works for working people, to root out systemic racism in our justice system and society, to combat the climate crisis, to unite our country and heal the soul of our nation. And the road ahead will not be easy, but America is ready. And so are Joe and I. We have elected a president who represents the best in us, a leader the world will respect and our children will look up to, a commander-in-chief who will respect our troops and keep our country safe, and a president for all Americans. And it is now my great honor to introduce the President-elect of the United States of America, Joe Biden.
Hello, my fellow Americans, and the people who brought me to the dance, Delawareans. I see my buddy Senator Tom Carper down there, and I think Senator Coons is there, and I think the governor's around. Is that Ruth Ann? And that former Governor Ruth Ann Minner. And most importantly, my sisters-in-law and my sister Valerie. Anyway. Folks, the people of this nation have spoken. They've delivered us a clear victory, a convincing victory, a victory for we the people. We've won with the most votes ever cast on a presidential ticket in the history of the nation. 74 million. What I must admit has surprised me. Tonight, we're seeing all over this nation, all cities and all parts of the country, indeed across the world, an outpouring of joy, of hope, renewed faith in tomorrow, bring a better day. And I'm humbled by the trust and confidence you've placed in me. I pledge to be a president who seeks not to divide, but unify, who doesn't see red states and blue states, only sees the United States. And work with all my heart, with the confidence of the whole people, to win the confidence of all of you. And for that is what America, I believe, is about. It's about people. And that's what our administration will be all about. I sought this office to restore the soul of America, to rebuild the backbone of this nation, the middle class, and to make America respected around the world again, and to unite us here at home. It's the honor of my lifetime that so many millions of Americans have voted for that vision. And now, the work of making that vision is real. It's a task, the task of our time. Folks, as I said many times before, I'm Jill's husband. And I would not be here without her love and tireless support of Jill and my son Hunter and Ashley, my daughter, and all our grandchildren and their spouses and all our family. They're my heart. Jill's a mom, a military mom, an educator, and she has dedicated her life to education. But teaching isn't just what she does, it's who she is. For American educators, this is a great day for y'all. You're going to have one of your own in the White House. And Jill's going to make a great First Lady. I'm so proud of her. And I'll have the honor of serving with the fantastic Vice President who you just heard from, Kamala Harris, who makes history as the first woman, first black woman, the first woman from South Asian descent, the first daughter of an immigrant ever elected in this country. Don't tell me it's not possible in the United States. It's long overdue. And we're reminded tonight of those who fought so hard for so many years to make this happen. But once again, America's bent the arc of the moral universe more toward justice. Kamala, Doug, like it or not, your family, you become an honorary Biden, there's no way out. So all those of you who volunteered and worked the polls in the middle of this pandemic, local elected officials, you deserve a special thanks from the entire nation. And to my campaign team and all the volunteers and all who gave so much of themselves to make this moment possible, I owe you. I owe you. I owe you everything. And to all those who supported us, I'm proud of the campaign we built and ran. I'm proud of the coalition we put together, the broadest and most diverse coalition in history. Democrats, Republicans, independents, progressives, moderates, conservatives, young, old, urban, suburban, rural, gay, straight, transgender, white, Latino, Asian, Native American. I mean it, especially those moments, and especially those moments when this campaign was at its lowest ebb. The African-American community stood up again for me. You've always had my back, and I'll have yours. I said at the outset, I wanted to represent this campaign to represent and look like America. We've done that. Now that's what I want the administration to look like and act like. For all those of you who voted for President Trump, I understand the disappointment tonight. I've lost a couple times myself, but now let's give each other a chance. It's time to put away the harsh rhetoric, lower the temperature, see each other again, listen to each other again. And to make progress, we have to stop treating our opponents as our enemies. They are not our enemies. They are Americans. They're Americans. The Bible tells us, to everything there is a season, a time to build, a time to reap, and a time to sow, and a time to heal. This is the time to heal in America. Now this campaign is over. What is the will of the people? What is our mandate? I believe it's this. Americans have called upon us to marshal the forces of decency, the forces of fairness, to marshal the forces of science and the forces of hope in the great battles of our time. The battle to control the virus, the battle to build prosperity, the battle to secure your family's health care, the battle to achieve racial justice and root out systemic racism in this country, and the battle to save our planet by getting climate under control, the battle to restore decency, defend democracy, and give everybody in this country a fair shot. That's all they're asking for, a fair shot. Folks, our work begins with getting COVID under control. We cannot repair the economy, restore our vitality, or relish life's most precious moments, hugging our grandchildren, our children, our birthdays, weddings, graduations, all the moments that matter most to us until we get it under control. On Monday, I will name a group of leading scientists and experts as transition advisors to help take the Biden-Harris COVID plan and convert it into an action blueprint that will start on January the 20th, 2021. That plan will be built on bedrock science. It will be constructed out of compassion, empathy, and concern. I will spare no effort, none, or any commitment to turn around this pandemic. Folks, I'm a proud Democrat, but I will govern as an American president. I'll work as hard for those who didn't vote for me as those who did. Let this grim era of demonization in America begin to end here and now. The refusal of Democrats and Republicans to cooperate with one another, it's not some mysterious force beyond our control. It's a decision, a choice we make. And if we can decide not to cooperate, then we can decide to cooperate. And I believe that this is part of the mandate given to us from the American people. They want us to cooperate in their interest. And that's the choice I'll make. And I'll call on Congress, Democrats and Republicans alike, to make that choice with me. The American story is about slow yet steadily widening the opportunities in America. And make no mistake, too many dreams have been deferred for too long. We must make the promise of the country real for everybody, no matter their race, their ethnicity, their faith, their identity, or their disability. Folks, America has always been shaped by inflection points, by moments in time where we've made hard decisions about who we are and what we want to be. Lincoln in 1860, coming to save the Union. FDR in 1932, promising a beleaguered country a new deal. JFK in 1960, pledging a new frontier. And 12 years ago, when Barack Obama made history, he told us, yes, we can. Well, folks, we stand at an inflection point. We have an opportunity to defeat despair, to build a nation of prosperity and purpose. We can do it. I know we can. I've long talked about the battle for the soul of America. We must restore the soul of America. Our nation is shaped by the constant battle between our better angels and our darkest impulses. And what presidents say in this battle matters. It's time for our better angels to prevail. Tonight, the whole world is watching America. And I believe at our best, America is a beacon for the globe. We will lead not only by the example of our power, but by the power of our example. I've always believed, many of you heard me say it, I've always believed we can define America in one word: possibilities. That in America, everyone should be given an opportunity to go as far as their dreams and God-given ability will take them. You see, I believe in the possibilities of this country. We're always looking ahead to an America that's freer and more just, ahead to an America that creates jobs with dignity and respect, ahead of America that cures diseases like cancer and Alzheimer's, ahead to an America that never leaves anyone behind, ahead of America that never gives up, never gives in. This is a great nation. It's always been a bad bet to bet against America. We're a good people. This is the United States of America, and there's never been anything we've been not able to do when we've done it together. Folks, in the last days of the campaign, I began thinking about a hymn that means a lot to me and my family, particularly my deceased son, Bo. It captures the faith that sustains me and which I believe sustains America. And I hope it can provide some comfort and solace to 230,000 Americans who've lost a loved one to this terrible virus this year. My heart goes out to each and every one of you. Hopefully this hymn gives you solace as well. And it goes like this: and he will raise you up on eagle's wings, bear you on the breath of dawn, and make you to shine like the sun, and hold you in the palm of his hand. And now together, on eagle's wings, we embark on the work that God and history have called upon us to do. With full hearts and steady hands, with faith in America and in each other, with love of country, a thirst for justice, let us be the nation that we know we can be. A nation united, a nation strengthened, a nation healed. The United States of America, ladies and gentlemen, there's never been anything we've tried we've not been able to do. So remember, as our grandpapa used to say when I walked out of his home when I was a kid up in Scranton, he said, "Joey, keep the faith." And our grandmother, when she was alive, she yelled, "No, Joey, spread it. Spread the faith. God love you all. May God bless America, and may God protect our troops." Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Joseph R. Biden poised there to become the 46th president of the United States as he just gave his first address to the nation as president-elect. And in so doing, passing the baton as a former vice president himself to the next. Kamala Harris said, "You chose hope, decency, science, truth. You chose Joe Biden to help our nation reclaim our sense of purpose." And Joe Biden said he sought this office of the president to restore the soul of the nation, to rebuild the backbone.
We've won with the most votes ever cast on a presidential ticket in the history of the nation.
You have protected the integrity of our democracy.
Simon, let's bring back our U.S. Bureau Chief, Simon Marks. We were speaking to him just before Joe Biden and Kamala Harris took to the stage. Simon, those were very heartfelt words from both Mr. Biden and Ms. Harris. Have Americans, though, become desperate for a return to this kind of leadership and this time to heal, in Joe Biden's words?
Well, it seems to me, Christine, at the end of a day that has dramatically seen a page turn in the United States, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris were using their speeches there to convey to Americans and to the wider world that they want to take this country back to a place of political normalcy. I think the overriding message from that event, and we now see Kamala Harris and her husband, Doug Emhoff, coming onto the stage, a family tableau playing out on the stage, the kind of tableau that was denied Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, but also Donald Trump and Mike Pence, because the political conventions earlier this year moved virtual. These pictures are pictures of families united in celebration of their victory in this election. I think the overriding aim of those two speeches was to send a message to the world and to the country that America is back, an America that is stable, predictable, that isn't constantly on edge, almost living through dystopian times. And I think the key cadence in that speech was when Joe Biden called for an end to what he referred to as the grim era of demonization. Let it begin to end, he said, here and now. And that is just an absolutely stark contrast with President Trump's inaugural address, where he warned darkly of vowing to end what he called an era of American carnage. From that point on, Joe Biden would argue this country has been gripped by what he called there a grim era of demonization. It was also telling that he issued a challenge to Republicans. Mitt Romney, the only Republican senator so far to congratulate Joe Biden and Kamala Harris on winning this election. He said the refusal to work together by Democrats and Republicans is not a mystery. It's not something mysterious. He said it's not a mysterious force. It's a decision. If we decide not to cooperate, we can decide to cooperate. And he made it clear that he is going to reach out to congressional leaders, both Democrats and Republicans, in a bid to try and advance that agenda. Fireworks now lighting up the night sky in Wilmington, Delaware, a light show spelling out Joe Biden's name above the car park of the Chase Center as the entire Biden family and Harris families watch on with evident joy. I think it was notable also in this speech that he focused immediately on COVID-19, saying that on Monday he's going to unveil scientists and medical experts who are going to form the core of his COVID-19 coronavirus advisory task force. He said that their approach will be built on bedrock science and will incorporate compassion, empathy, and concern for communities that have not only lost loved ones, but have also seen their economic prosperity overturned as a result of COVID-19. We will spare no effort, he said, to turn this pandemic around. It was also clear from his comments that Joe Biden understands that he's only standing on that stage tonight because of the support that he won earlier this year from the African American community, and specifically from African American voters in South Carolina and their congressman, Jim Clyburn, a prominent African American Democrat on Capitol Hill. And Joe Biden conceded that at the point that he needed a win in South Carolina in the primary process, his campaign, as he put it tonight, was at its lowest ebb. It's important to understand, just a few months ago, Joe Biden was down and out in this race for the presidency. He had no money, he had little organization, he'd had a disastrous run in some of the early primaries and caucuses, and it was Jim Clyburn in South Carolina who told African Americans in that state to unify behind Joe Biden, that led directly to his victory in the primaries and to his presence on that stage in Wilmington tonight. And he was very, very aware of that in terms of thanking them. Notable too the fact that he jogged onto the stage at the beginning, absolutely intent to prove that he's got the mental and physical acuity necessary for the job that lies ahead. And Kamala Harris, as I said just before she spoke, wearing that white pantsuit, a silent tribute to Hillary Clinton. One can only wonder what it must be like, Christine, tonight in the Clinton home as Hillary Clinton watches these events playing out in Wilmington, knowing that she never got the chance to make the speech that Joe Biden made tonight. It must have been quite a moment in the Clinton home, and one also, of course, wonders how this is all playing out inside the White House, where I think we can be absolutely certain President Donald Trump was observing all of this at the end of a day that has still not seen him concede, but indeed has seen him reassert his claim that he, not Joe Biden, won this election.
Well, Simon, as you mentioned Donald Trump in the White House, we know that he is often solely, in fact, tuned into Fox News, and Fox has this chyron which says Biden elected 46th president. They've had that on for some hours now. It is quite clear that the Trump eyes, all of them, and his close advisors in the White House would be quite following and up to date with what is happening in Wilmington. It reminded me as well, when you mentioned Kamala Harris and her dressing in the white suit, it's 100 years since women were allowed to vote in the United States. So it is no small tribute to one woman, but I think based on what Kamala Harris said tonight, it's her tribute to the future generations of women and all ethnic communities in the United States.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. I mean, I suspect you're absolutely right, Christine. When it came to deciding what to wear tonight, there was only one choice for Kamala Harris because it checked so many boxes, and she was absolutely focused in her speech of citing her mother's influence on her own life, saying that through grief, sorrow, pain, worries, struggles, courage and resilience and the generosity of spirit that Americans had exhibited at the ballot box, she was standing there while I am the first woman in this office, the office of the vice president, she said. Of course, she's broken a glass ceiling today in achieving that goal. I will not be the last. And every little girl, she said, seeing this now knows that this is a country of possibilities. And the theme of possibilities resonated not just through her own speech, but also then through Joe Biden's speech, who picked up that notion of America being defined by possibilities and echoed it in his speech. Kamala Harris talked about healing the soul of the nation, recognized that the road will not be easy, but America is ready, she said, and so are Joe and I. She talked of the essential work that lies ahead to save American lives and to restore the American economy. So I think that both of these politicians, the president-elect and the vice president-elect, made it apparent that they understand the scale of the challenge that they face. The question hanging over all of this is, can they achieve it? Can they truly unite the country? Can they genuinely try and bring to an end what Joe Biden referred to as a grim era of demonization in a country where just weeks ago, members of a far-right militia were arrested by the FBI after allegedly plotting to kidnap and possibly kill the elected governor of Michigan, a Democrat, in a bid, according to the FBI, to spark a civil war in the United States. Is it possible for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, working, if they can, with congressional leaders, is it possible for them to put America back on the path to normalcy, or are those forces that have been uncorked and brought to the mainstream here over the last 4 years, forces that traditionally before the 2016 presidential election were sort of consigned to the darker fringes of the internet? We've just seen the first conspiracy theorist, supporter of QAnon, elected to Congress on the Republican ticket. Can some of those forces now, in some fashion, be neutralized by a greater national pull towards unity? And how does that work get underway at a time when the President of the United States still has not conceded defeat in this campaign and absolutely has not told his voters to get behind the kind of mission that Joe Biden put the country on in that speech tonight?
Simon, as you speak of normalcy, I think our viewers and listeners from around the world will be telling themselves there is nothing normal after 2020, after COVID-19. And just to update you from the Johns Hopkins University data site, to date, there are 237,000 deaths of Americans from COVID-19. The infection rate for the whole of the United States is fast approaching 10 million. What in the days ahead, not the weeks, but the days ahead, do we expect will be taking place in the White House, where new cases of COVID-19 infections have continued to be reported?
Well, I do think it's very important to understand the nature of the transition here. This is a country where after a president, in this case Donald Trump, for the first time since 1992, loses the opportunity to engage in a second four-year term in office, he's still in the White House for 70 more days. There is a transition period that gets underway that ends with the inauguration of Joe Biden on January the 20th. But Joe Biden is not in a governing position. Donald Trump continues to be president of the United States. The old Congress continues to sit, the one with the Republican majority in the United States Senate. And so therefore, Joe Biden's capacity to change the direction of policy between now and the end of January is non-existent. Donald Trump's capacity to spend the next 70 days, if he stops focusing on the claims that he's making about the rigged election and starts focusing on policy, he's got a huge opportunity, and Republicans will want him to work hard to try and implement a whole series of rule changes and regulatory alterations in a bid to try and tie Joe Biden up in knots, so that when Joe Biden first arrives in office, he has to spend weeks trying to undo the legacy that Donald Trump will hope becomes a fait accompli for Joe Biden to inherit. I mean, if you look at China policy alone, the Trump administration has already worked in a very ongoing manner to try and alter the very nature of America's engagement with China. And that work's not going to stop because Joe Biden has won the presidency. So the Trump administration is going to work to try and tie things up and continue advancing its own policy goals. And Joe Biden will then have to inherit all of that and decide how much of that he plans to undo. So this is not unusual. The Obama administration did the same thing before Donald Trump came in. This isn't a facet of Republican presidencies. It happens every time there's a transition and change. So you may hear from the COVID-19 task force that the president-elect, got to get used to calling him now, the president-elect, is putting together. You may hear details of the plan that Joe Biden will announce on January the 20th, but none of it is going to come into force until then. And that means that we're going to carry on seeing, for several weeks here, it is expected, record numbers of COVID-19 daily infections. 128,000 in 24 hours yesterday, a new record. There is no indication that that's going to get turned around anytime soon.
Simon, just very quickly as well, you walked us through the fact that President Donald Trump secured on the data more than 71 million votes of the popular vote. And now Joe Biden on the data is said to have secured more than 74 million. But even so, that is a significant number of the population in the United States. It's not even the full population because it's just a fraction of the electorate. But what is the real impact of Donald Trump having the eyes and the ears and the direct attention on Twitter and other social media of those many millions of Americans?
It means that Donald Trump is going to remain relevant in American society. And this is going to be a problem for the Republicans as they react to all of this. One of the reasons why I think some Republicans are hesitant to do what, in time-honoured fashion, they would always have done. Phone Joe Biden, congratulate him, offer their congratulations and best wishes on social media or everywhere or anywhere else, is because they understand that unlike any previous president, Donald Trump's not going to disappear off into the ether. He's not going to do what Barack Obama did after he left the White House, spend several weeks traveling, resting, enjoying life and getting over the enormous, awesome responsibilities that he had on his shoulders for 8 years. Donald Trump is going to return to private life, a private life overshadowed by those criminal investigations we were discussing earlier. But he knows he's got a bullhorn in the form of Twitter and other social media platforms to communicate directly with his supporters, people who are never, ever going to believe that Joe Biden was legitimately elected president of the United States. The more the president, Donald Trump, has sown disquiet over the last several months about the sanctity of America's electoral system, the more many of his supporters have genuinely believed that millions of ballots are fraudulently cast in America's presidential elections, even though they are not. And many of them will now believe that Donald Trump was robbed of the presidency by Joe Biden. That is going to give Donald Trump considerable relevance still in the Republican Party. It's his party. His family has a desire to extend Trumpism as a concept. Because remember, the ideological beliefs that have guided Donald Trump are not entirely core Republican beliefs. They're definitely something distinct and separate. And so I think it's going to be incredibly difficult for Republican leaders on Capitol Hill, on the one hand, to be reaching out to Joe Biden and trying to figure out if they can find a way of working together. But on the other hand, having Donald Trump with his 80 million Twitter followers hanging over them like a sword of Damocles. I think that is going to be part of the fascinating story that we get to tell here on CNA starting on January the 20th, 2021.
Well, Simon Marks, as you have been speaking and walking us through all that is happening today in Wilmington, Delaware, and the rest of the United States, Donald Trump has been silent on social media for some 4 hours now. Regardless of what we say, time marches on. Simon Marks, many thanks for all your analysis in Washington, D.C. Now, as you have been hearing, Joe Biden will be sworn in as the next U.S. president, the 46th, on January the 20th in 2021, Inauguration Day. He will be 78 years old by that time, the oldest American president to take office. The earlier record for that was held by President Donald Trump. He was 70 years of age when he was sworn in on January the 20th back in 2017. Ronald Reagan and William Harrison, they were 69 and 68 respectively when they took office. And the youngest person to become a U.S. president was Theodore Roosevelt. He was aged 42 in 1901. That's when he began his first of 2 terms. John F. Kennedy was 43 years old, and Bill Clinton was 46 when each of them took over as commander-in-chief. More recently, Barack Obama, he was 47 years old when he became the first black president of the United States. Well, Kamala Harris has made history as well, becoming the first woman, the first black woman, as you heard, the first woman from South Asian descent to become vice president-elect. As the child of Jamaican and Indian immigrants, Ms. Harris has been a taboo breaker all her career. A former district attorney in San Francisco, in fact, and she was the first at the time. She was elected as the first woman of color to serve as California's attorney general. Ms. Harris then became the second black woman in the chamber's history when she was elected as a U.S. senator in 2016. Since she was tapped on to become Joe Biden's running mate, she has slammed Donald Trump for his chaotic handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. And we've heard her thoughts on Donald Trump's position on racism throughout the country, the economy, and the president's crackdown on immigration. Her background in criminal justice and prosecution will certainly be of contribution to a Biden administration in tackling those issues of racial inequality and policing. The United States was swept with the Black Lives Matter movement all this year. Kamala Harris is expected to become a top advisor on judicial nominations as well. She had initially set her sights on becoming herself the first female U.S. president. She competed for the Democratic Party's nomination for 2020, but of course she later dropped out of that race. And with a 77-year-old Joe Biden expected to serve a single term, Kamala Harris would certainly be favored to win the Democratic presidential nomination 4 years from now, even though she hasn't yet weighed in publicly on all of that speculation. It is an historic day for the United States. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris addressing the nation in just a short time ago for the first time as the U.S. president-elect and vice president-elect. It's the tail end of a very contentious, though historic, election. Thank you for your company on CNA, but the news continues through the day.